Chapter 3. To London. Oliver walked nearly 5 miles into the country. Every time he saw someone coming toward him on the road, or up from behind, he hid in the bushes. It was noon before he sat down to rest beside a large stone maker. Until then, he had thought only of getting away and not being caught. Now, for the first time, he began to think of where he should go. On the marker in bold letters, followed by a big arrow, it said that the city of London was 70 miles away. Oliver said to himself, London is such a huge city that no one, not even Mr. Bumble, could ever find me there. The old men in the workhouse had told him that no lad of spirit need go hungry in London. They said that there were too many ways of making a living in the big city. Oliver decided it was just the place for a homeless boy like himself to go. He jumped up and started on his way. He was not all that sure he could walk that far, but he was determined to try. Day after day, Oliver walked on. He begged at nearby cottages for food and slept in the open air. His food were soon sore and bleeding. He became so tired and weak that his legs trembled beneath him. Once, he waited at the bottom of the steep hill until a stagecoach came up, and then he begged for help from the passengers. They told him to run after the coach if he wanted a halfpenny. Poor Oliver tried, but couldn't run because of his sore feet. When the passengers saw this, they put their money away and called him a lazy fool. Oliver was often driven away from the villages where he begged. One innkeeper threatened to set his dog on him if he didn't move. After walking for 7 days, Oliver limped slowly into a little town just outside of London. There he sat, covered with dust, upon a cold doorstep. His loneliness hurt him even more than his hunger. Oliver was there for some time when he watched an odd-looking boy watching him from across the street. The boy was about his own age, but behaved more like a grown man. He wore a top hat, which seemed about ready to fall off at any moment, and a man's coat that reached almost to his feet. He was not only dressed strangely, but he spoke strangely too. He rambled over to Oliver and said, "Hey, Cubby, what's the row?" Oliver guessed that he meant and said, "I am very tired. I've been walking for 7 days." "I suppose you'd like some food and a place to sleep tonight," said the boy in a friendly way. Oliver said he would like that very much. "Come then," said the boy, helping him up. The boy said his name was Jack, but everyone called him the Artful Dodger. He brought some bread and ham at a shop, giving half of it to Oliver. Then he said he knew a nice old gentleman in London who would be happy to help Oliver find work. Oliver was very puzzled by the boy. He wondered what he could be so good at dodging to deserve such an odd nickname. Also, the boy seemed to know without being told why Oliver had come to London. But Oliver was so thankful for the boy's help that he didn't ask any questions. The Artful Dodger led Oliver through many narrow, crooked streets to a dirty place where all the houses were old and falling apart. Suddenly, he took him by the arm and pulled him into one of the houses, slamming the door behind them. He brought Oliver up a dark, broken stairway and into a back room where a shriveled old man stood in front of a fire. The old man was toasting sausages on a long fork. He had an ugly face, much of which was hidden by his long matted hair, and he was dressed in a loose robe. Several boys sat at a table near him, smoking long clay pipes. Like the Artful Dodger, they seemed to act more like men than boys. On the floors of the dirty rooms were scattered many rough beds made of old sacks. "Hey, Fagin," called the Artful Dodger to the old man. "This is my new pal, Oliver Twist." Then he went up and whispered in the old man's ear. "We are very glad to meet you, Oliver," said the old man with a wide grin on his face. "Come sit down and have something to eat." When he sat down, a boy at the table started to go through Oliver's pockets, much to his surprise. But Fagin stopped the boy by poking him with a fork. Countless silk handkerchiefs hang from a wooden rack at the end of the room. Fagin noticed Oliver staring at them and said, "We've got a lot of handkerchiefs, haven't we, Oliver? We've just put them all out to wash." The boy shied and laughed at this. Oliver was not all that sure, but he smiled and ate his supper eagerly. Fagin gave Oliver a cup of something hot to drink. After he had finished it, Oliver felt sleepy, and Fagin put Oliver to bed. Oliver did not wake up until late next morning. There was no one else in the room except Fagin. Oliver was very drowsy. Although he was not asleep, he was not awake either. He thought he was still daydreaming. His eyes were only half open. While he lay there, Oliver saw Fagin open a trapdoor on the floor and take out a heavy box. The old man's eyes seemed to shine brightly as he raised the lid. He took out a splendid gold watch, sparkling with jewels, and held it up to the light. He took out at least a dozen watches and many rings and bracelets, before he suddenly turned and saw that Oliver was looking at him. The boy closed the box with a crash. The old man closed the box with a crash and, picking up a knife from the table, grabbed Oliver angrily by the hair. "Why are you watching me?" Fagin cried. "I wasn't able to sleep any longer, sir," Oliver stammered in a sleepy voice. Fagin put the knife down just as suddenly as he had picked it up and told Oliver he had been joking. "I was only trying to frighten you, my little dear," the old man said, chuckling. "You're a very brave boy, Oliver. Did you see any of these pretty things?" he asked, laying his hand on the box. "Yes, sir," replied Oliver. Fagin became very pale. "They're all mine, Oliver. This is all I have to live on in my old age. You understand, don't you? Now bring that pitcher of water over here and get washed." Oliver went and got the water. When he returned, the box was gone. Soon afterwards, the Artful Dodger came in with one of the boys, whom Oliver had seen smoking the night before. His name was Charlie. "Well," said Fagin cheerfully, I hope you've been at work this morning, my dears." "Hard at work," replied the Dodger. Good boys," exclaimed the old man. "What have you got to show me?" The Dodger handed him 2 leather wallets, and Charlie gave him 2 silk handkerchiefs. "These are well made," Fagin said as he inspected them. "You'd like to learn how to make wallets and handkerchiefs, wouldn't you, Oliver?" "Oh, yes, sir," Oliver said quickly. Charlie burst into laughter when he said this. Oliver looked at him in surprise. He didn't know what there was to laugh about. Oliver sat and watched as Fagin, the Artful Dodger, and Charlie played a strange game. The old man placed a wallet in one of the pockets of his trousers, a silk handkerchief in another, and a watch on a long chain in a little pocket of his vest. Then he walked up and down the room, pretending that he was a rich old gentleman in the city. Sometimes Fagin would stop and stare into the fireplace or the doorway, as if he were staring into a shop window. All this time, the 2 boys followed him closely, without ever letting him see where they were. At last, the Dodger moved in swiftly and stepped on the old man's toes, while Charlie stumbled into him from behind. Before Oliver could say a word, the boys had taken Fagin's wallet, handkerchief, and watch. Fagin looked so funny when he slapped his pockets and screamed that his wallet was gone. Oliver couldn't help but laugh and laugh.